let's talk about debt. Is there such a thing as good debt? Technically, no. If you have to take on debt in order to obtain something, then by definition you cannot afford it. It means that you don't have something of equal or slightly lesser value to trade for it, or you don't have the cash for it. And as a result, you take on debt, the creditor ends up racking in interest over time, and you end up paying more over time than that product or item that you want is worth. So no debt is good debt, but there is such a thing in my book as safe debt. And what I mean by that is debt that you can cover immediately. And what I mean by that is if you have the money in the bank or in some other investment that you know is easily, I want to say liquid, but something that you can get from, you can get cash right away for it or from it, and you can pay off that debt immediately. Now, this is kind of tough to do in one take, so bear with me here. So if I want to take a loan out for a car, let's say I want to buy a car that is worth an even 50 grand, okay? And I only have $20,000 in the bank, which is a lot of money. The average American has a lot less than that, actually, if I recall correctly. So, someone to have $10,000-$20,000 saved up, it's pretty good, especially if they're younger. And if you take that $20,000 and let's say you put 15 of it toward the car, that means you're financing $25,000. And if that's a 5-year loan, you're going to pay around $400, maybe a little over $400 a month, depending on the interest rate, right? That's a lot of money. And for 5 years, you're going to pay more than that $25,000, than that face value over time because of the time value of money. That's why interest exists, right? So that, in my book, is an example of something that somebody cannot afford, and that's not safe debt in my book. It's not safe because you can't pay it off if something happens. Let's say you get into a wreck with that car, right? And that car suddenly becomes much less valuable because you almost totaled it, right? It just now it doesn't run the same because whoever fixed it didn't do a great enough job. And if you wanted to go and sell it again, well, now you've got this like red icon on your Carfax report saying that it was in a serious wreck, or maybe it was even like a salvage title if it was that bad. And depending on what your insurance gave you for it, you would be paying off a loan for a car that is no longer worth the face value of the loan. So that's an issue. I mean, you're going under, right? Same thing happens with trades. So like if you owe more on the car than the car is worth in a trade, then technically you're taking on more debt as a result of that, right? So it's kind of, it depends on the car that you're buying or that you're trading for, obviously. But there are a lot of caveats here, and people just kind of, they just throw money at stuff and they're like, oh yeah, no problem. The monthly payment's only $200. I can afford that. I can afford $200 a month. But technically, you can't afford to take on the debt if you don't have the money to pay off the loan, or at least most of the loan, right away. And that sounds really stingy, but I try my best to live that way as well. I try to save as much as I can. I don't go out to eat very much. I really don't leave the house much. I work pretty much 7 days a week. And if I ever take any time off, it's just to go to the beach or to do something that doesn't cost a lot of money. Where I spend a lot of my money is flying back and forth to see Lisa while we're still apart, and then also on things like health insurance and rent. Rent here is extremely high. And we're actually building a house so we don't have to deal with this anymore, so we can build some equity. But anyway, if you are buying the same car, and let's say you have $50,000 in the bank, and you want to buy, did I say it was a $50,000 car? Let's say you have $60K in the bank, and it's a $50,000 car, and you decide, you know what, I don't want to take $50K out of my savings to pay cash and pay off this car. I'm going to instead, I'm going to finance $20,000 of it. So you pay $30,000, so basically you cut your savings in half, but you still have $30K of savings in the bank, and you only owe at this point, $20,000 on the car, so slightly less than that, than the previous example, although you have way more in the bank. So that in my book is safe debt, and the reason why I call it safe is because it's very easy to pay off that loan really whenever you want. If something comes up and let's say you get fired, right, and you don't have a steady income anymore and you're going to be drawing on your savings to pay for everything, you might just want to go ahead and just throw the savings at the car and pay it off. Might not be a good decision. You have to weigh the pros and cons with your particular circumstance. But in my case, I would probably do that. I would want to get rid of all my debt. That way I don't have much to worry about except for a place to live and maybe some food. I hope I never have to get to that point, but you never know. Life throws curveballs at you all the time, and worst part about those curveballs is you have no idea when they're coming. So you kind of have to take what you get thrown and make the best of it. So there's just, I don't want this to sound super philosophical or anything, but I personally try not to take on debt that I know I can't afford. The one exception to that, at least in my book today, is a house or a mortgage, right? So I'm building a house right now, and it's not cheap. It's not like, it's not $500,000 or anything like that, but it's not $100,000 house. Like, it's a decent house. It's in the middle somewhere, right? And so the way I approached it was, I'm going to put 20% down because that's what I've been saving up for years, and I wanted to be able to qualify for a conventional loan. I'm only 24, so, creditors look at me a little, they squint and they get a little closer and they want to see all your details. And then when you tell them you're self-employed on top of that, that's a kick in the teeth. You got to go through a bunch of crap to be conditionally approved, and then to get out of the conditional approval state, which is kind of where we're at now, you have to show them a few more things and verify income and taxes and all. Like, I had my creditor ask me if, or potential creditor, I should say, asked me to send them verification that I paid the IRS last year. Federal taxes for my company last year, before we became an S corp, were several $1,000s, and so we ended up just paying it all in one lump sum. I don't even know if you can pay that off monthly. I'm not sure if there's like a payment plan for the IRS. That you want to pay them off up front. The right thing to do is to save up what you would expect to pay in taxes every month, so that you have that amount to send to the IRS as a check during tax season. But anyway, they want to go through all my crap. So I have been trying to save up enough to put 20% down on a house. And that's what we're able to do. Now, it's going to drain most of our savings, but it's something that I consider safe debt. And the reason why I think the house is an exception in most cases is because you can typically get most, if not equal or slightly more, money out of your house if you sell it in the future. Housing prices have been kind of all over the place. Lately, it's been slightly steady. Interest rates have been kind of on the decline. It's like really topsy-turvy, because if our president says one thing, people get, super sketched out, and then they take all their money out and stock prices fall, and then they go back out the next day when Trump says something really good. Like, it's really up and down. It's difficult to predict. That's why I don't play in the stock market right now. But with the house and interest rates, like, I haven't looked at it like a serious debt issue, because worst case, something happens in my life and I can't afford the house anymore. I put it on the market and I try to get what I can for it. And hopefully I can get most of my equity back. And obviously, the longer I have this loan, the more interest I'm technically paying into it. So I'm going to try, while I'm paying it off, to put more money into principal so that I can pay it off sooner. In fact, I might just do it in big chunks, depending on how we're doing in the year. But you never know. Lisa or myself could get really sick. Our baby could get really sick. You just don't know. Again, life throws curveballs. But the good thing is, with respect to the house, at least, it's equity. And, well, as long as it's not interest, right, it's equity. And you can typically get most of that back when you resell the home. With a car, cars depreciate pretty fast. Houses don't typically depreciate that hard. In fact, in some cases, housing prices go up. So it really depends on the market. But in most cases, I would say that a house is a better, safer investment than a car. Property in general would be a safer investment. So anyway, that's my take on that. That's what I think about debt. I think there are a few exceptions to bad debt. I think most of it is bad debt, right? If it's debt at all, it's typically got a negative connotation to it. But there are some safe debts out there. Like, if you want to keep your money in savings, savings for a rainy day, that's perfectly plausible. That's typically what I do. I finance part of my car. I could pay it off right now, but I don't want to because I know we're gonna have to put a ton of money into the house. And as of right now, I can afford the monthly payment on the car with the difference, the balance that I still owe on the loan. So I'm content with that. But I know that if I wanted or had to pay off the car right away for whatever reason, I could. That's safe debt. If I had no money in the bank, then to me that wouldn't be safe debt. What do you think? Leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching this one and just listening to me ramble, and I'll catch you in the next one.